muscles. Now, the theernal muscles consist of 4 muscles. They're the abductor pollicis brevis, opponens pollicis, flexor pollicis brevis, and adductor pollicis. Now, let's turn the hand like this, and then remove a couple of layers until we get to the bone. Opponens pollicis is this muscle right here. It originates from the flexor retinaculum and the trapezium bone of the wrist. Flexor retinaculum is a band of connective tissue that is formed by the fascia of the lower arm, and we'll talk briefly about it when we cover the fascia of the upper extremity, but for now, just know that this muscle originates from this retinaculum, and then it inserts at the base of the first metacarpal bone, and the function of it is opposition and flexion of the thumb, meaning pulling the thumb towards the little finger. So that's this one. Next we have the flexor pollicis brevis, which is this muscle right here. It originates from the flexor retinaculum as well, and the deepest part of it originates from the distal wrist bones, the trapezium and the trapezoideum. It then inserts at the base of the proximal phalanx of the thumb, and its function is more or less the same as the opponens pollicis. Next we have the adductor pollicis, which is this one. It has an oblique head and a transverse head. The oblique head originates from the capitate and the base of the second to the third metacarpal bones, and the transverse head originates from the third metacarpal bone, and they both insert at the base of the proximal phalanx of the thumb. The function of this muscle is adduction of the thumb, more or less as the name says. So that's this one. The last theernal muscle is the abductor pollicis brevis, which originates from the flexor retinaculum and inserts at the base of the proximal phalanx of the thumb. It's called abductor pollicis brevis, so it abducts the thumb. And that was all the muscles of the theernal region. The first one is the opponens digiti minimi, which is this one. It originates from the flexor retinaculum and the hamatum, and it inserts at the base of the fifth metacarpal bone. The function of this muscle is opposition of the little finger, basically pulling it towards the thumb. Next we have the flexor digiti minimi brevis, which is this one. This muscle originates from the flexor retinaculum and the hamatum, and it inserts at the base of the proximal phalanx of the little finger. Its function is in its name, flexion of the little finger. Next we have the abductor digiti minimi, which is this one. It originates from the flexor retinaculum as well as the pisiform, and it inserts at the proximal phalanx of the little finger. And its function, can you guess it? That would be abduction of the little finger, pulling it away from the third finger. The last muscle of the hypotheernal region is the palmaris brevis. This muscle originates from the flexor retinaculum as well, this one, and it also originates from the palmar aponeurosis, which is the structure that the palmaris longus inserts on. The palmar aponeurosis is primarily a fibrous triangle covering the palm to protect the neurovascular structures underneath it, and it also fuses with the superior palmar fascia at some parts. We will talk briefly about this one when we talk about the fascia of the upper limb. So it originates from these structures, and it inserts at the skin of the palm on the ulnar side. So when this muscle contracts, it pulls the skin and produces wrinkles on the hypotheernal side to mainly tense the palmar aponeurosis. So that was the muscles of the hypotheernal region. Now let's talk about the middle hand muscles, and we will start with the interossei muscles. There's a palmar interossei and a dorsal interossei. So let's do the palmar interossei first. The palmar interossei are 3 muscles located in the 2nd to 4th interosseous space between the metacarpals, as you see here. So let's remove and fade a couple of muscles to see them better. These muscles originate from the medial side of the 2nd metacarpal bone, the lateral side of the 4th metacarpal bone, and the lateral side of the 5th metacarpal bone, and they insert at the proximal phalanx of the 2nd, 4th, and 5th finger. When these muscle fibers contract, they adduct the fingers, basically pulling the 2nd and 4th and 5th fingers towards the 3rd finger, as you see here. So that's this one. Then we have the dorsal interossei muscles. There are 4 dorsal interossei muscles located in the 1st to 4th interosseous spaces between the metacarpals, as you see here. They originate between the metacarpal bones of the 1st to 5th fingers, and they insert at the proximal phalanx of the second to fourth fingers. When these muscle fibers contract, they abduct the fingers, as you see here, meaning they pull the second and fourth finger away from the third finger. Awesome. So, system of muscles called the lumbricals, which are here. These are 4 muscles that correspond to the second to the fifth fingers. They all originate from the tendons of the flexor digitorum profundus, and they insert at the proximal phalanx of the second to the fifth fingers. The lumbricals are actually a very practical muscle to have because they give our fingers the possibility to flex the proximal phalanx while extending the middle and the distal phalanges of the fingers. So that was all the muscles of the middle group that I wanted to talk about. And with that, my friends, we have covered all the muscles of the upper limb.